Because golf is such a hard game to play and regular golfers are typically time constrained when it comes to getting better, they often search for quick solutions to complex problems. And given golfers are usually on the search for more distance when it comes to their drives, a speedy solution which is often considered by many is simply to buy a driver with 1 or 2 degrees less loft on it, with the theory being the lower the loft, the more distance you will automatically get. So in this video we take a look at the stats to see if 1 degree of loft change in a driver can really increase the distance you hit the ball off the tee, and also which degree of driver hits the farthest. Welcome back to the Golfing Focus channel, everybody, and unfortunately, as any regular golfer likely suspected, the buying of a new driver with 1 degree of loft difference to your current one is not a magic bullet to delivering more distance. As a whole, how much change 1 degree of driver loft makes to distance is decided by a golfer's swing speed, attack angle, and the centre of gravity and weight position of the driver. And that is because driver loft is not just static, in other words the degree number shown in the club, but also dynamic, which is in short the amount of loft in the club face that impact with the ball. Tour Experience Golf has done some great experiments on the impact of loft and driver distance, and one they did recently helped hugely to demonstrate how a change of static loft on a driver by around 1 degree is never the full answer. And the simple reason for that is that distance is also impacted by dynamic loft and attack angles. In one of their tests, for example, they simulated a steep swinging golfer who has a negative attack angle and a high dynamic loft. After initially hitting a ping G425 max 10.5 degree driver, they switched that style of golfer to playing a tailor-made Sim 2D 9 degrees. And the results, as we can see from this table of launch monitor data below, were significant. Reducing the static loft of the driver by 1.5 degrees not only resulted in an increase of 16 yards of carry and 27 yards in total distance, but this was interestingly also achieved with the player actually swinging the club slower than they did with the higher lofted driver. In other words, they got more distance even though they put less into their swing. Focusing solely on the static driver loft change in this example, you could easily come to the conclusion that this is what made the difference. But as the TEG experts were keen to point out, this would not be a good lesson to take from this data. The reason for this is that good club fitters are well versed in the reasons why a golfer is hitting the ball as far as they do, and know both the swing and club options they can propose as solutions to reducing dynamic loft. And in summary, there are 3 ways to reduce dynamic loft with a driver change. Number 1, reduce static loft of the club. Number 2, change the driver's centre of gravity location. And number 3, change the driver's internal weighting. So in this example, after identifying that the golfer, when using the 10.5 degree driver, was adding over 6.7 degrees of loft to make their dynamic loft number far too high to let them drive their maximum distance, they made 3 adjustments rather than just 1. And as a result, they got the player delivering a dynamic loft of a much lower and better 12.6 degrees, which helped produce much more distance. Changing only the 1.5 degrees of static loft to a 9 degree ping G425 max would also have made a difference, but not the close to 30 yards of difference it did when applied in combination with the other 2 adjustments. However, this does not then also mean that every player will see an increase in their driver yardage by reducing the static loft of their driver by 1.5 degrees in combination with choosing a correctly weighted and gravity-centred driver. Because TEG's follow-up experiment highlighted that for golfers who swing the driver differently, with a shallow swing for example, the answer is likely to be different. For this type of player, who typically struggles for carry distance as a result of delivering too little dynamic loft and spin in spite of their positive attack angle, they conversely increase the static loft of the driver to enable them to launch the ball a bit higher and add almost twice as much spin to be much closer to optimal. This time the changes delivered only 8 yards of extra total distance, but crucially an increase in carry distance of 23 yards, which can often be crucial in particular golf holes. And once again this result was achieved despite them swinging more slowly with a higher lofted club. So as we can clearly see, working out much of a difference 1 degree of driver loft makes to the distance a golfer hits the ball is specific to them and their swing. And it's never just a case of assuming that adding or removing that 1 degree is the only element what will make the difference. because it's about rotational dynamic loft as well as one-directional static loft, and a good club fitter will help you understand what will make the most impact. They will also be skilled enough to tell whether a swing change or even something as simple as a tee height adjustment will make you hit the ball further than a 1-degree loft change in your driver will. Given what we have covered so far, when it comes to answering which degree of driver is the best for distance, it is clearly not practical to give an answer that will apply to all golfers. To say, for example, that a 9-degree driver is the solution for everyone and will unquestionably go the farthest compared to all other lofts of driver is impossible, but we can give some rough guidelines. As a general rule, golfers with slower driver swing speeds of below 80 miles an hour need more driver loft to maximise distance, approximately 12 to 15 degrees. For average swing speeds of 84 to 96 miles an hour, driver lofts between 10 to 12.5 degrees are a guide start point, while for fast 100 mile an hour plus swinging golfers, 8 to 10.5 degree driver lofts are often advised. Again, as we have already seen through the examples we have covered, it's important to remember we can only talk in generalities, and if you are serious about working out which degree of driver will let you hit the ball the furthest, we would always recommend getting a lesson or fitting, or both, using a launch monitor. But if we continue the general guide discussion for a moment beyond club stroke swing speeds, we would then move on to addressing attack angles and their impact on the consideration of which players need lower or higher lofted drivers. We cover driver attack angles in more detail in another one of our videos, but in brief, golfers that hit up on the golf ball at impact and therefore have a positive angle of attack, as the shallow swinging golfer we saw earlier did, can sometimes also benefit from higher lofted drivers. But as these players typically launch the ball high anyway, they likely need to be careful to add loft in small increments. Players using drivers with a forward centre of gravity that can generate lower spin rates can also potentially gain distance from higher lofted drivers that enable them to hit the ball with a higher launch angle. But again, care is required as to whether this fact alone is what necessitates adding loft. Conversely, if you hit down in the ball with a negative attack angle, like the steep swinging golfer we saw earlier, or use a Ping G425 Max style driver with a centre of gravity at the back, less loft is more likely to be the result of any loft change decision, because you don't need much loft to get the ball up and want to reduce the spin rate. Saying all this, however, we would always come back to the same thing when it comes to looking at driver loft that will allow a specific player to maximise their distance off the tee. The impact of more or less loft varies according to your swing speed, the attack angle and the dynamic loft of your driver at impact, and the best way to work this out and go beyond the general guidelines we've outlined is to go and speak to a good instructor or club fitter with a launch monitor. You may never know. You may be lucky and find yourself in a similar position to the steep swinging golfer in the example we covered, who in part, through a driver loft change of only 1.5 degrees, managed to find an extra 27 yards of distance off the tee. So that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please do hit that like button and click on one of those boxes on the screen to join us in another one. And as ever, and most importantly, we hope you're enjoying your golf.